It's heavenly to open with such peace, with such smile, as Beethoven opens the second movement of his first concerto. And at the conclusion you have the dominant tonic, rather 7, diminished 5th tonic on the tonic, with the tension of the 7th, appoggiatura, cacciatura rather, resolving. For the pianistic fact, the tension and release of the harmony is not at all translatable, and shouldn't be, in the gesture of dropping down the wrist for the tension and lifting the wrist and playing softly or slowly down the keys, as if you do the translation of the tension and the release in the harmony of a dissonant and a consonance. You translate it in the tension of the tendon and the release. It's wrong. Wrong. Because it will betray you. It won't speak if you suck up the sound of the fingers trying to avoid playing. Instead of letting the fingers drop, straight knuckle to tip, supported by the palm, but without the weight of the arm, just from the sheer dropping weight of the hand. So therefore, during the second 8th note, after the initial play of the tension, harmonically speaking, you release by lifting, holding the tip of the fingers like darts stay in the tips of the keys, but the rest of the hand is free. You slightly lift the wrist to relax the tendon, and you drop with straight fingers with only the weight of the hand. This way you guarantee that the fingers will drop quickly on the bottom of the key when they depress the key, and you obtain a almost 99.99% secure realization of playing louder and softer without a hole, no Swiss cheese. And not, because then the F didn't speak, or this C speaks out too much and surprises you, because there you have no way to escape to the perfection that is expected, because there is nothing to cover this moment. It's either or. That's why the technique is to separate in the tension release of the arm, hand and trigger of the wrist down with the straight fingers, compared to the harmony, tension and release. That's very important, I think, to master, in order to have the self-esteem, confidence that it's going to speak no matter what. And it's going to speak softer than the tension. Even if the tension is played softly, this will be softer. And you won't risk or it seems not very important in terms of expression, rhetoric, eloquence, aria melodic like it will be. Because it's only a miscellaneous lock closing the door, but it is a peace of mind for the pianist to know it's going to speak. He won't have to worry if he's going to betray you, surprise you, stick out a note to you, or not playing one that you wanted to play, just because you want it to be softer, as it is the release of the tension. In the opening bars of the same solo, you start with the 10th. Beethoven doesn't start with the tonic in the soprano. He starts with the 10th, which is an open invitation to the follow-up. Listen to me. Of course, simple, establishing A flat major, mostly tonic dominant, like here 1 5, then 1, again 5, again 1, and again 5. This time the second group of 4 bars is with an upbeat, and the leap of the 6th melodically, which is the terms of endearment, the eloquence rhetorically of the love, the interval of expression, because it embeds the major or the minor. But in the opening chord, the very opening first bar, it just starts with an exhaling, like a sigh, but a smiling sigh. We're well in A flat major. Whenever the second time, after 4 bars, as if it commands the attention, where will it go this time? Of course, to the subdominant 5 of 4 4, with the operatic leap of the 10th this time after the 6th, or the melody. And back with 4 5 as degrees, we established our tonality. In the opening of D minor concerto Mozart, which Beethoven played, he has leaps of octaves for the melodic line. And similarly, he has a leap of 10th. Sorry for that. And here he has also leap of 10th. Similar operatic gesture. Especially here, the opening is only a semitone. Then it becomes 10th and closing. Also, for the quality of the ornaments, the turns are indicated only by a sign, not by little notes indicating a value of speed, or more at which point of the beat, or between or after the beat, it should be played. Is it pretty and perky, or more abundant? No wig, just the hair falling naturally, or in between. Of course, if you incorporate melodically the ornament, then you become a little bit more 19th century-ish, I would say, for the stylistic fact that the ornament becomes a melodic asset and therefore thematic meaning. This is an ornament by itself, or decoration in Baroque, and becomes thematical theme. Thematical notes, obviously thematical theme. So if I do, I think I overpass the boundaries of the early 19th century. But who's to say? It's in the eye of the beholder, since Beethoven, who's picky when he knows to be. For instance, at the end of the first long phrase, we have groups of 30 seconds written out with fingerings. A bar before that, we have an operatic vocalise with little grace notes all written out one by one, over 4 16th notes of the third beat of a 4/4 bar, even if it's a Largo in 8/8, obviously. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So he knows when he wants to be very precise didactically, say this is exactly where I want it to be placed, not just place those notes somewhere. Here he doesn't say. I think it's to the discretion of the pianist. Spoke even softly. But that wasn't the point of this demonstration. This point of this demonstration was when the melodic line is simple, like the first bar with half note and 4/8 notes, the piece is complete. But at the end of this 8th bar of the first solo, he ornaments it, decorates it, sophisticates it, embellishes it, almost artificially adds a lot of effects, triplets, trills, 30-second double-dotted rhythm, leap of 10th as we mentioned. All this is the leap of the 10th with a 30-second. Then the triplet with a trill, non-legato, then the turn. So of course then you can chop it into beats, and each beat has its special quality. 4/16, 3 triplets with trill, then detached for the second beat, then turn. So it becomes so precious that it loses its natural flow. And you have to be able to think about the natural flow. In your inner film, projecting in your brain, and you play what is written. So you integrate all these decorative embellishments in the line, and not starting to become more important than the line, like distractions of the line by what the purpose of embellishing the line in the first place is. Then it becomes a distraction from the line, which is defeating the purpose. So you have to be very careful in order to be aria singing in the right hand, to maintain the length of sound, which is the sacred, most important fact, because if you lose that, the flame dies, there is no more light, there is no more meaning. You have to put meaning in the phrasing, meaning in the direction of the line, meaning in the point of it all. And by that, I must say, the singers, if they make an effect, and they can play, or sing rather, of course, a softer note, they're able to crescendo holding it. And regain the energy that they might have not had to hold through when they had to take a breath, or eventually organize vocally a certain leap. But on the piano, if I do, then I'm cooked. What do I do now? I cannot exit the soft note, but softer. At that point, there is no more room. And if I exit it by the top, then I have an accent that comes from nowhere, because the piano is a percussive instrument and I forgot it. But I should never forget it, in order to make you make believe that I forgot it, that you forget it. So I have to anticipatedly play louder the A flat so that I can exit it where it dropped, in order to be able to continuously draw a line and not have waves nor accents, just a sense of continuum, like a glider dropping very progressively, or a bird landing from having soared in the skies. So which are my main important decorative and thematic notes? The decorative are passing tones, and the trills, and the acciatura, and the passing tone, and the neighboring tone. Okay, but then the meaningful notes, which are, perhaps we called it sometimes the blue note, I mean, for, I don't know why. The appoggiatura, the escaped. So it's B, A, F, and then A flat for the 6/4 with the neighboring tone and finishing on the tonic. So if I can focus on the B, on the A flat, on the F, on the A, that is what creates the continuity of the melodic line, undistracted by the beauty of the embellishments which have to be injected inside it, and not, if the trill is too big, it breaks the continuum of the attention that you start by the length of sound, suggestively introducing the listener's attention. So there is a hierarchy of the sounds in order to create a continuum of the follow-up of the length of sound, in which you incorporate, and you don't allow for the quick notes to distract you, because the piano being percussive instrument, the quick notes always prevail. And the slow ones have to be, or the long values have to be carefully planned so they can glide and have enough air to last until the landing. That said, it has to be played and not spoken. Second entrance of the piano after the tutti of the orchestra. By the way, I'll play the tutti of the orchestra so you have the full feeling of this slow traction of well-being, of plenitude. So the second entrance of the piano part, which is another aria, is there to go from the tonic to the dominant of the dominant, 5 of 5, E flat. Dominant, B flat major. So it has a modulation in it. First it's 1, 5, and 1. Surprise, like in a recitativo with the 6th chord, so typical. 5 of 6, F minor, secondary dominant, on which you also play, and then 5 of 5, and 5. what you should do in this case is make sure that the trills that are incorporated in the bar 3 of this entrance display themselves like a veil on the wind. It shouldn't be all exactly measured and clear. There is a first partita by Bach where the trill is an enhancement of the B flat ostinato sostenuto on the syncopation. So to signify the importance of that appoggiatura, trills is appoggiatura of course, on the syncopation it's trilled. It's like many appoggiaturas in a row. Well, the other parts have in the top a melodic scale and exchange of voices in the other one. But when you play on the piano, it's easy to play soft and have the trill because of the quick notes on the percussive instrument stick out more than they should be for the embellishment which they are. Paradoxically, you have a softer real notes and more busy sticking out quick notes which are supposed to be the light notes like this. Therefore, in this same case, the trill has to be incorporated and not because of the articulation and the lifting of the fingers, which is the articulation as it is, it's too loud. You have to play inside the lifting halfway of the key. So you will play in the escapement of the action and not this way. You incorporate it in the espressivo dolce melodic line. You don't allow it to grow out of proportion like a snowflake. And you should maintain a quality and clarity both of the first note of each of the beats and incorporate the escaped according to the different dispositions: root, first inversion, second, tonic. This chord is totally unexpected, the 5 of 6. You're obliged to play a sforzando that is operatically declamatory, like surprise, extroverted, and then the chromaticisms that come out of it in an embellishment. We have an augmented second, a minor sixth, a diminished fourth, basically a catalogue of intervals that scream psychological manipulation. The first ones, they inhaled this beauty of simplicity, of the well-being of the root triad, the plenitude. Whenever these ones cacciatura under, all these multiplied effects over perhaps burden the melodic drop. Compared to the trill. But it's not the melodic line that does it, it's the harmonization, because this harmony is more, it's a minor F minor triad. This was an A flat major triad. And F minor is the relative minor, 6th degree. So it's the closest cousin. dominant of dominant, 5 of 5. Taking all these elements separately, they become so... it's like looking at insects with a magnifying glass. All of a sudden everything takes enormous proportions. So in order to be able to organize the phrase in the most natural, apparently simple song quality, you don't want to erase them because they are there. You don't want to overexpose them because then they will break the natural direction of the line, without which you have nothing. And so this very thin balance between suggesting the beauties and following your line in order to create a sense of traction where you go to. And this has to be your guideline, sort of the blueprint, the GPS, the overview, the bird eye view. And then inside, you just let it nest. And the orchestra answers by a minor rest on the dominant. For sound on the weak beat, not on the downbeat, and that dominant is only a 7, the diminished triad on the tonic. Which is so Beethoven-esque. After which the descent of thirds of the clarinets bring you back to the smiling E flat major. This is Sturm und Drang, or what is it if not? This plagalisch cadence smell of the 4th degree, and the piano comes and dialogues in intimacy, chamber music like a flute. And you just have a quartet of 2 clarinets and 2 bassoons. Accaciatura ornaments is the clarinet. And all of a sudden the dialogue disappears and it comes back to the aria. Second degree. With extras. This is a roller coaster of emotions, of noble feelings, of expectation for uplifting of the soul, for becoming a better human being by listening to this music. It's almost like a sacred experience in the sense of the fact that you have in dialogue between piano as a soloist then transforming back into the diva, the genre aria. In the D minor concerto by Mozart, which Beethoven played, only one that he played. That's the slow movement, the romance. Then the tutti picks up. And then you have the aria. Suggest that Beethoven stole something from Mozart. It's just that Mozart and Beethoven wrote a slow movement of a piano instrument concerto for the piano for the day that uses the genre of the aria imitative on the keyboard of the bel canto aria style genre quality. Factually, of course, chronologically in that sense, Beethoven having played the Mozart D minor concerto, one can find similitudes, but it's also because that was how you learned your composition skills in the time when you wrote quartets, requiems, and string perhaps sonatas with trios, etc., etc. So it is not to say, but the fact is that there is a closeness of spirit between the two, the young Beethoven and the old, but of course young in age Mozart. In that term, I think one can find kinships between the two. And I think this is what I like to think, because if not, one would trace some kind of semblance for the sake of it, which is in a way necessary, perhaps, enticing for the intellect, but ultimately gratuitous, because it doesn't teach us more than, okay, there are musicians of their time, and they wrote music of their time with the skills of their time. The difference is that most people who wrote with skillful knowledge music in their time were not Mozart's nor Beethoven's. They are the nobodies of the time. The manies who wrote the other pieces that are fairly forgotten today, but we have the visible tips of the icebergs of the time for us to live with. So I continue from where I dropped the arrival of the E flat major middle section. This is the typical Beethoven half major, half minor. Smile with a tear, second movement, second theme, first sonata. A flat major, third, minor, sixth. And here we have E flat major, then A flat minor, chromatic. Then the C natural, suggestive of the major and back to the minor. And back to the major. The return to the recap comes by this dominant pedal in the orchestra, and the piano soaring is a soprano. 6/4, dominant 7th, dominant 9th, minor 9th, omitted root to diminished 7th, suspended without any root in the air. And that smile when you return home is the most endearing thing, because obviously the first time it's already God-given wellness, and all of a sudden here after the tortured C diminished 7th and chromaticism when it returns, it contrasts with that well-being. The subdominant with the dip of the 10th. After the triplet. The extra gruppetti. The three floating notes bridging between the second degree, the 5th and the 1st. Suggestive of a nano rubato. Because if you have to place them, even if it's a very slow subdivided 4/4 and 8/8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, they might be a bit rushed. So perhaps it will be, because of the fact it's unmeasured in small fonts, you can stay longer. Just like a diva would do at the end of an aria with a vocalise before the return of the tutti. 5 of 5! And between the strings and the winds, the piano, the third, picks on the same pattern of double-dotted, bridging with the triplets and the trill, for the final expression of the opening theme, this time in a waltz setting with triplets that create a 2 against 3 with the melodic line, and just supported fluffily by the pizzicati and nothing more but the piano's resonance of bass notes. Legato is obtained by sliding, substituting, diminishing, crescendoing and building through the long values and not with the shorts, the crescendo to the soar and the drop. While the accompaniment, it has this kind of muted four horns in the piano part itself. It's like, why does it have to be a concerto if I'm going to play all the parts myself? But that's the point of view of the romantic era to come piano concerto, where the piano is an orchestra by itself and the orchestra is the orchestra of the concerto's piano concerto. Anyway, the bass is pizzicato in the low note with the third finger, because it's the only way you can quality cherry pick it and slide it without to play with the fifth finger, which is so obliging you to lower your wrist, or if you do higher you might be not stable, on the black keys especially, and soft and whispered, but eloquently resonating with the pedal, like pizzicato with vibrato, and not too much, while the played inside the keys horns 4-part harmony dominant tonics are played to be muted. They have to speak inside the resonance, not from above, but inside. So it's three-dimensional accompaniment between the harmonization, eighth note, 2 eighth notes, rest, and 2 eighth notes, ta 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 ta, not the downbeat heaviness, because the downbeat is the pizzicato. And on top of this, the third hand, or the voice, sorry for breathing in the middle of the wrong place, but I'm not a singer, therefore I'm not gonna try. And keeping on top the layer of the eloquent melodic line of the soprano with the rhetoric and the extroverted expression of well-being compared to the accompaniments, and the rhythmic bass, but rebouncing and light, basically elegant and presented. We have a little bit similar, same key, the third time slow movement of the pathétique, except the melody and the bass have their own melody, not pizzicati. But you have the triplets inside. Like here. And it's very subtly important that the second of the two brushes against the right side wall of the second of the three in order to create a sense of real 2 against 3, and not slightly quarter-eighth note tripletish with syncopation. You and me, me and you, rather. Of course, one of the two is on the beat, but since there's a rest, there is nothing. But the second is between the second and the third, but rather right after the second of the three, and not in between the second and the three, in order to have a real second of the two that is equal length. You can practice A flat major scale 2 against 3 legato to feel that sensation of 2 against 3 or 3 against 4, but not in rapport of each other. Until you can play both at the same time and follow them for their own traction, their own volution. Piano, crescendo for the 5 of 4, with the D flat and the G flat, and then back to A flat, which we never left, but just visited the secondary dominant of the subdominant. Oh, sorry, I sang. piano, but the theme is in the clarinet, soaring in a beautifully simple, not ornamented leap of the ascending sixth with the acciatura under, just to make it softer, if possibly softer, tender. Already it's tender. And delaying it slightly to fake the minor that is not, but it sounds like it could be, but it is. And all that powdered on the top with this kind of stardust on the piano, and the staccati in the left hand. Terribly sorry I sing when I give examples. I promised myself when I was a student, I'm not going to do that, because I thought my teachers, as genius as they were goofily, tenderly spoken, singing the expression of the melodic line or the melodic voice or whatever it was melodic to suggest that it has to be heard as a song or a phrase or a direction or a line or a connection. It doesn't have to be sung per se, but the example, of course. And so I was thinking, one day if I become a teacher, I'm not going to sing to give the example, because I think it's silly. But then the mirror spits the image at me. I'm doing the same thing. So the conclusion of the movement is with a tonic ostinato, on which we place 2 5 of 4, 5 of 1 in the solution of the diminished seventh on it. For the darkness, I guess, of the harmonic effect of the mood, compared to the opening of the A flat major dominant brightness, almost like in the end of the Chromatic Fantasy by Bach, the consecutive diminished sevenths chromatically dropping. Sevenths, all these chromaticisms, all these exchanges of voice, all this German sixth for tension of the augmented sixth, and then the sweetly evaporating minor thirds, faking far distantly the diminished sevenths they're no more part of. Balloons in the blue sky. I'll sing. Just like a bird. It's not an embellishment. I think it's more like a vibrato, or the bird singing with the voice going very quickly between them. And then only when it becomes 5 of, excuse me, of 6, 3, 4. The orchestra playing the diminished 7, well, minor 9th with omitted root, but this time is even not omitted, so it is a minor 9th. Deceptive cadence. So it starts as a repeated note, it becomes a trill, but almost without expression, just shaking, floating in the air, and then there's a secondary dominant leading down, more crescendo, and then piano immediately to be ending in a dolce of the A flat major. Clarinet aria ending more than the piano itself, which part is more commenting and in dialogue, ornamenting the clarinet's expression with a 5/4 harmonization, which the piano played in the opening, but only the triad root position harmonization. Here in the last notes, yes, last spoken notes of the movement. Reluctantly leaving. It's almost like Mozart's codas in C minor concerto slow mode. To call the addio section, the goodbyes, the farewells, the let's go, but not right away, stay with me. And here he also ends with one of these terms of endearment. Is also Beethoven. The second beat rest is also Beethoven. One feels like the music continues to resonate in us after we've heard it. And when the third movement comes in to break that magic daydreaming, pity, but it is part of the operatic effect, of course, opera seria. After the aria there will be the tutti and the quartetto and the trio, and sorry for that wrong note. So he's going to have this kind of third movement of full enjoyment, after the second movement of longing, expression of elegant and smiling with or without the tears, always cheesy words. Melodic line. This song movement is the quintessence of the quality legato piano playing, of the decorative information, but at the same time introduction within the horizon line of direction where you go in each phrase, even if it's stretched, to fill the lungs of the music and of the soulful listening to it, and elevate us to a higher spirit, and make us feel like there is a pace, and there is a movement, and there is a tension, and there is a release, and there is a time to soar and a time to drop. And it's also just displayed with eloquent elegance by Beethoven for us, and therefore from us to the audience. And the difficulty is to choose how much of what is too much, not enough. And one can hear, listen, teach, study, analyze, solfège, chew, write, compose in cadenzas, or even from memory write down the score in order to appropriate this moment of eternity within ourselves. And it becomes a gift that keeps on giving. And you connect it to other pieces that you like, or you think it was inspired by, or perhaps it imitated even. Regardless, it's an homage if it is at best. But all these connection of thoughts, all these elements of combination of aesthetics, of the melodic line, of the operatic attitude of these composers who lived in the midst of a Vienna that had this string quartet organization, sonata form organization by Haydn, and the operas with Salieri and Mozart, and the basically the Italianate style, the Germanic attitude, the French elegance that they considered such, especially with dotted rhythms and this kind of majestic feeling of the French overture. All these different type of effects or moods or suggestions are not all ethnomusicological like later it would be. It was more about capturing something that was fresh in the air of the moment, of the day, and writing this charming music which ends up by being eternal to us. Little I imagine they thought, Beethoven the First, that he would be still played today. Perhaps his ego was big enough to hope. But I don't think that he even imagined that other people today won't play, or in the day of the tomorrows, their own Beethovens and their own Mozarts and their own Haydns in their daily lives. But we happen to conserve the past from these conservatories, to have the libraries and to have the cult of studying the past to understand ourselves better. And we end up by becoming more aware of what they were composing than they had the opportunity to know in their short lifespan and very little communication in comparison to today, or access to it. And I think that it is a beautiful thing, paradoxically, that we live in their own time zone, the time of the performance or the rehearsal or the composing, recomposing, or the interpretation of their piece. But it's not really something that we can stay in, because it's an encapsulated time. And then we go back to our own time, whichever it is, in the terms of the era in which we live. But these moments, these glimpses of the past, bring us a sense of connection, perhaps more than anything else, to ourselves through it. And not just to play aesthetically correct or historically correct or incorrect, or be in the wrong tempo, or does he understand anything and the pedal is too long, and how come he doesn't play the indicated scores, which edition does he use, etc. All these elements are very essential. As a teacher, I cannot minimize them. As a matter of fact, they're my daily bread. We all, with students and teacher together, stare at a score all day long to try to understand how to better serve it, how better understand the thought process of the composer, that we think it is what it is in the eye of the beholder that we have. And it eventually will change in our own life, let less with other points of view, and it's an enrichment. Sometimes it's a shock, sometimes it's a rejection, and sometimes it's an appropriation, and sometimes we say, oh, this is another beautiful way to look at it, or it's too fast for me, but I like it, or I needed more time because I have to express myself. And then we connect it to our own expression of sorrow and happiness, or contentment, or developing a sense of plenitude. And what is a plenitude in the 18th century when they lived short and intense, or today when we have a different system of robotized life that allows us to live longer, and perhaps we still connect more intensely to them than to our own music of the day. Perhaps psychologically it disturbs us today to be connected to the music of the day compared to their own, in their own day. But we won't know that. It's a chronological nonsense to even imagine it. How would they react to today's, and how would we react if we were in their skin, so to say. But we just conveniently enter in their skin the time of the performance, rehearsal, analyzing, and teaching. All this is just a marvelous archaeological sort of experience, but in real time, not so much just for the historical aspect, which inevitably it is, since the instruments don't correspond, so the articulation, the length of sound, the pedal, some things are enhanced more than they would have perhaps wished, or less, or more than they could have hoped. But how do we know? And it gives a sense of superiority that is totally wrong to say, oh, they would have liked it better today. And perhaps yes, and perhaps no. But we like better their yesterday in our today. And as my teacher used to say, the dissonances of yesterday are the consonances of tomorrow. I feel like connecting to their past is our own present, relived and reformulated for our own contemporaries who are sitting on the other side of the stage and who participate with us, who are the performers, the listeners plus. I think it's a very noble and generous gesture that they gave us these gifts beyond time, the composers in question, and we have to give them back through through us to the audience to share. It doesn't have to do with the knowledge, well, partly, or the education, true, a little bit too, but beyond that, it's just to do with the open mind and the poetic mind in each of us that wants to dream, daydream, hope, believe, expect, long. Perhaps some people will find it artistically or stylistically overstated or old-fashioned. Anything is old-fashioned, everything is vintage after 20 years today, so that less 200. But who knows, perhaps beyond all these ways of projecting ourselves in our own life, through theirs, we project something of our own eternity that is not obviously only theirs in their context, it's in our context, but it's beautifully shared. And it's nothing more moving than an audience sharing a slow movement like this, by proxy of Beethoven through me one day, or another performer another day, and then after us the other performers will come and will live through this experience that is soulful and meaningful. Of course they'll struggle technically to play it right in the articulation, in the trillion, in all these details that have to be practiced for the touch control of the pianist. But they're worth it because they're there to work on the beauty on serving the muse. Playfully play in that sense of the word, not struggle only. Fantasize on the keyboard, as CP used to say in his Versuch research essay. We are there to fantasize, to imagine the sound. Every time we play a note, it's an invitation to the next. Even if you know the score, or perhaps you don't know the score, but you expect to hear, perhaps it will be... We don't know for those who don't know. They just receive it. And those who know the score, they receive it too, even if they know. Perhaps more critically by saying, oh, he didn't do it like I would have, etc. That is true. But that is legitimate. Since it's a part of his, not recitation, but partly it is. As an actor says the lines. But believably so that you think the lines are his, even if you know they're not. And his acts, despicable or inspiring, that the character has to produce, are not his or hers. But you have a rupture of disbelief that he's telling you a beautiful lie and you like to believe it. So the fact that I feel my knowledge of the real-time harmonic progression, modulation, secondary dominance, usage, all what constitutes the language of the composer, doesn't overshadow the purity, simplicity, and I would say the spontaneity of the melodic line. If it's harmonized with a 5, or is it harmonized with a diminished 7th? Is it harmonized in minor? Or is it harmonized in the dominant? Of course, it will depend on this highlight how you will connect the rest of the melodic line, and it becomes a dialogue between the melodic line and the harmonic dressing. And it becomes a subtle play on shadows and light, chiaroscuro. It's like a painting, it's like a poetry where the right word comes at the right point and just blossoms by its sound itself to bring the meaning of it more so. Not just for the sound of itself, if not it will be just onomatopoeias, but no, it will be the meaning of it. And I believe deeply in the fact that one shouldn't play just prettiful, as one could, just for the sound, to be pretty and this and that and there. But it has to be also meaningfully beautiful, in the sense that this brings me to the dominant. And I don't want to take it for granted. Okay, it's not the greatest dramatic, unexpected movement of harmonic progression to go from the tonic to the dominant. That is true. If he had gone you would know without knowing harmony that something scary or unexpected or manipulatively dramatic will come up and perhaps cleave it up. Elong it by going to the imaginary deceptive cadence to delay the arrival. Okay, that is the harmonic knowledge that this could have been, but it's not. The fact that you know the roads and the crossroads of your area makes you able to go through different ways back home without to get lost, and perhaps for different little reasons, like the lighting is better this way, or perhaps there's less traffic on this side, or at this hour I'll pass better through the park. So it doesn't mean that you have to think alternative constantly, like Beethoven wrote this instead of no, yes, no, no, yes. So you cannot recompose it for him constantly. I like to give examples of the look how he could have done it if he didn't go the way he chose. But this is more to highlight the beautiful, simple, or perhaps most inspired way he did. And sometimes we're biased because obviously since he did it, it's the best. So it defeats the purpose to try, but it doesn't hurt to project the alternative in order to understand and cherish better the way he chose. And we can be also critical sometimes, say, I wish he didn't go there. I wish he went again to the relative minor and then he finished through a deceptive cadence or finished with a plagal cadence. That's not wrong. It's creative. And in a way, it's human, spontaneous. Of course, we need essentially to follow the gospel, every note. And sometimes not every note is the essential note. So it's not condescending and arrogant and to say, oh, Beethoven, I know which are your essential notes, the others I'll just play which I like. No, well, that you could do as a scholar, perhaps in a demonstration, in a master class, fine. But in performance, you can induce all this, but just through his notes. I'm very thankful that I was exposed to this piece as a child, and already has traveled some 40 years with me. And I still have the same sense of opening the parfum bottle and smelling the fragrance of the soul of it, revealing itself every time more marvelously, and never tired of it. Perhaps it's me, perhaps it is the peace. Perhaps it's always the case between people who love, they don't have enough of each other. And in this case, you never have enough of a given piece. To teach it, to play it, to record it, to conduct it, to all these things. And then still say, just to say it one more time. I can see Menuhin conducting. I was 10 playing this in my little head inside. I heard the same harmonies. I didn't know what to call them harmonically, all these analytical things at that point, but I felt their tensions and releases like all children or all humans when they listen. So thankfully the fact of knowing how it's constructed didn't erase the meaning of the fragrance that it emanates in me. It's like I'm inhaling it. Like a garden. And if you do too much of that, you become, frankly, easily narcissistic, because it becomes some kind of a infused. But because you share it, you teach it, you record it, you rehearse it, you organize it, you remain at the craftsmanship level, not just at this elevation of a certain spiritual destination of the nevertheless soulful music it is. I think one can combine both. In order to, for me, it's the translation of the untellable, inevitably. If there were words, there would be no need for this slow movement. This slow movement will forever say the words better to all of us than any of the most eloquent musicologists, of whom I am none. But I still feel that as a piano player, I try to translate that aria to my students or to my conductors or to my audience or just to myself. In all humility and not in narcissism, how will I say it best? How will I say it so that it goes from point A to point B in the best? Have I managed to say it once well? Or does it leave me the hope to still do it so? It's not meaningful to the rest of the world, but it's meaningful to my world. And if I am the humble craftsman of my art, then perhaps I serve humbly the piece, and hopefully this humility translates also in the quality of the phrasing, not overindulging, as I just did by speaking so longly about it. As the philosophers say, it's not the destination that matters in the journey, but the destination is the journey itself. And what a journey it has been for this concerto with me, at my small level and at its philosophically stratospheric level. But it's my human connection to it. And I'm so happy that my students have their own, and they build their own. Thank you.